Welcome to another episode of the Haskin Cast podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and today I'm talking about me. I'm talking about my new album that drops today, Mental Sauna 6, Warm Chill. This was an interesting album because it came about in a very strange way. Originally, I had challenged Kelly, my wonderful graphic artist who I love dearly and has done nothing but a stellar job on every album cover that we've worked on together. I said, you know what? This time I want you to make the cover and I'll write the music based on whatever you come up with. So we're going to do a little role reversal. I thought that would be fun. And a good challenge for both of us, because normally what happens is I tell her what the album is going to be and give her whatever I have written, whether it's just demo songs or if I'm doing a reworking of older songs, then I just give her the original versions of those and say, I'm rewriting all these, but here's basically what they are. Then she just takes it from there and creates some magnificent, beautiful thing, or I give her some hideous stick drawing and she turns it into something absolutely stunning. So I thought, well, this would be cool for both of us and do a little role reversal. But then something interesting happened. Fate found a way. And I was talking to my buddy, Tommy Schaefer, who's been on the show a couple times. Lovely guy, love him to death. Absolutely fantastic. I don't know what waters he's sailing in today, but wherever he is, I hope he's happy. He sent me a piece of music that he wanted me to check out, and it was over 20 minutes long, one piece of music, and it was chill music. I was not extremely familiar with chill music. I've seen little clips and stuff on YouTube of people setting like a piece of music to a picture from inside a coffee shop and things like that. So I have a very basic idea of what it was all about, and I loved the piece of music he sent. And after I listened to it, I thought, I wonder if I could write something like that and how that might fit into the mental sauna world, because I have had up to this point, not so much on the first album, but as I developed from the second on, certain rules about percussion and pianos and, hard striking instruments and how I want them to sound to fit in within the mental sauna verse. Because I don't want anything that strikes too hard. I don't want anything that's going to take you out of that relaxed state. And if you have like all of a sudden there's a big crash cymbal or a crescendo or like an ocean wave hitting the rocks or, things like that, it's going to take you out of that relaxed state. So I've had very specific rules of how I shape the sounds of the things that I put into the music. Even with the Christmas album, I took some of the edge off of the piano, so you don't hear the strike of the piano keys as much as you would. You hear more of the tone that they bring. And then I coupled that with a harp that I did the same thing to. So within those worlds, I thought, well, this is going to be interesting because this could be very percussive, which I've kind of wanted to dig into a little more percussion with Mental Sauna anyway. And so I played with it a little bit and I came up with a piece and I sent it to Tommy and I said, you really inspired me. I loved what you wrote and I wanted to see if I could do something in that same realm. Does this fit the genre? And he said, absolutely, it does. So I asked him to be sort of a consultant on this album. And I said, when I write these songs, is it okay if I send them over to you and you tell me if they are in the right category? Because I'm not familiar with it enough to confidently say yes without a second opinion. And he said, absolutely. And he did just that. I'd sent him, there's 12 songs on the album. I'd sent him the first one already. So I sent him the next 8 and they were all in, I guess I'll call it compliance. They were all in compliance with the rules and regulations of chill music. And I said, there's going to be 3 more. I'm just finishing them up. So I sent the other 3 and he agreed they were all in the right category. So I listened back to them all to make sure that I felt like they hit the mental sauna criteria as well. And I felt that they did. It expands it a little bit. I had to slightly redevelop the rules a little bit for this because I think some of the percussion does need to have a little bit of a strike to it because it's not really relaxation music as much as it is just, it is, but it's more like distraction. It's something to block out the quiet, but it's also something to get lost in, I think. And so there is more strike to the percussion on this. And I think that's really what sets it apart from the rest of the Mental Sauna music, at least the stuff that I've done more recently. Mental Sauna Maternity did not have a huge amount of percussion on it, whereas this does. But, that's a different purpose, a different idea behind the album, but any of these can be listened to in any setting, certainly. It's just when I'm creating these in my mind, that's more the theme that I'm going for. And so I hope that you guys like it. It is going to be available on my BandCamp. I will have the link in the show notes for you. If not, you can go to my BandCamp page or go to my website, scotthaskin.com. There will be an announcement and links there as well. And I'd love to hear what you guys think of it, because this is a slight departure and expansion from what I've been doing recently. And just a quick heads up on what's coming next. I have a soundtrack that I wrote that unfortunately the project never got made, and I'm just sitting on a ton of music that I really like. So I'm going to put that out there in case anybody wants to license it for a project, or if you just want to listen to it for enjoyment. I think it's some fun stuff. And it's a shame because I think that had a really good shot at being like a full series on HBO or, one of those type of networks, maybe Netflix. I don't think Netflix was really that big at the time I was working on this. I know that they were, their mail order business was really big, but I don't know if they even had their streaming one yet. But it certainly would have fit that avenue anyway. But lots of good stuff. So love the cover that Kelly came up with. So here's what happened with that. So I started that story and then I got sidetracked. So I said, she had sent me the cover, and I said, I love this. And I was developing some ideas for this. I said, I think it would fit this style that I'm checking out. And I sent her the song, the original demo that I wrote, which at the time was just called Chill One. And she thought it would match very well. And then she sent me the final, and I thought, yeah, I think this is perfect. So it kind of aligned, but I feel like I may have cheated her out of that full option to make me write whatever picture she wanted to create. I think the idea of the music kind of tailored what she ended up doing with the final. So I think I'm going to throw that out there again at some point and maybe give that another opportunity and see what we come up with. We work so well together. I think it would be kind of fun to let her guide what inspires me for a project, whether it be the next one or not. So I'll do the soundtrack. Then I'll probably do a re-release of old music before I write another album. And I'm thinking horror for the next album, but we're probably talking sometime in 2026 by the time I get the other two projects done. In the meantime, my new podcast will be starting February 3rd. The teaser or sort of RSS feed episode will come out today, actually the same day as this episode. And it's going to be under Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast is my new show. And if you're interested in the music of Deep Purple or just curious about their music, check out that show. I'm doing, much like I did with Uriah Heep, the Magicians podcast, one show per song. So every song gets its own focus and feature. And, it's well-deserved. They make some great music, and people seem to really know the hits well, but not the deeper tracks. And there's some just incredible music on every album. So I'm really excited to get into that. I've already recorded the first episode. And as I record this on New Year's Day, I'm recording the second episode with my first guest tomorrow. So really cool stuff. So check that out. Again, all the links are on my website, scotthaskin.com. So the first track that we're going to get into, I'm going to play about a minute or so of every track that's on the album for you. You guys can decide if you like it, if you want to purchase it. It will eventually be on all the normal outlets. They all have their own time frame. Because I don't make a lot of money on these, I'm not typically paying extra to get it released on a certain date through there. It is on my BandCamp. You can download it from there, and that is a perfectly viable source. So I don't see any reason to pay extra to get it on Amazon on release day or whatever. Those things will happen as they do. We don't get huge sales from Amazon anyway. So as I get those links will be added to the website. But if you go to scotthaskin.com, it'll have the BandCamp link. It'll have the link to the website page as well, because I'll do a page for every album that I put out that has, the songs, a player that you can listen to samples and all that sort of thing. But you can also listen to them right now, because I'm going to play the first sample. The first song is called Lazy Day. And this is the original song I wrote that was, the working title was Chill One. And this is the one that I had sent over to Tommy and to Kelly And a couple other people, my friend Jennifer, that really likes chill music. I sent that to her to see what she thought. And she was very positive about it, very encouraging for me to do more. So that certainly helped me believe that I could do this only on one song, which is interesting. I will say overall, it does have a little bit darker of a feeling that I had originally intended. Some of the sounds that inspired me at the time I was working on this are a bit darker than I had originally planned, but it definitely has like a what feels to me like just like a late night winter setting for a lot of them. And I think back to stories I've told about, like on my non-Christmas music, Christmas songs episode, where I talked about just those nights where I was waiting for my dad to come home so we could go to my grandparents for Christmas Eve, and just the feeling of those nights. And it kind of doesn't necessarily have the Christmas vibe, but it has that dark winter night vibe to me. And considering that I wrote this through the fall and the winter time, it makes perfect sense. So let's get into it. Here's a little bit of Lazy Day. What's funny is as I was listening to each song back to the masters to make sure I was happy with it and giving them final approval, each one that came on, I'm like, oh, I think this is going to be my favorite song. And the next one, I was like, oh, I think this is going to be my favorite song. I'm very happy with this album. It was a lot of hard work, but at this, like, creative wise, it came somewhat naturally. It was really a matter of just not overthinking the chill aspect of it versus just being a typical Mental Sauna album. And I had fun writing each and every song, finding all the sounds. The sounds tend to really inspire you to an extent. I'm just going through different sounds, thinking about what I would like to use, what a song might work with. And then, you play with the sound, you come up with a melody or a pattern or an idea or whatever, and just develop it from there. So I really don't have a lot of commentary per song. I'll just say I really like the bass line on this one. It flows nicely, but isn't too technical or progressive, but I think it's just got a nice flow to it, and it really helped the song along. I really like the percussion and the pads on this, just that coming out of the, what I guess would be considered the chorus back into the main melody again. And then that just higher pad comes in and just kind of sits like a cloud over everything. I just really love the feel of the song, and that bass line really flows nicely. There are a couple songs I actually finished and sent over to Tommy, and when I was listening back to them, I'm like, there's not enough low end, and I added a couple of bass lines here and there to some of those songs, and hopefully those worked out okay. But I'm very happy with it. I will say one thing that I did on most of the songs for this particular album is I faded out the percussion before I faded out the pad sound. So there's a little bit of a difference in that for this album as well. I just want to kind of let that just kind of decay into the ether, and then let the main sort of cushy, fluffy pad sounds end the songs by themselves. There's a couple I just faded out on their own as well, but that was the bulk of them. So a little bit different of a technique. I thought I'd try, and I really liked the way it works, so I kept it. There you have it. The next song up is called Foggy Night. So I'm not going to do any behind the song videos for this one because, like I said, I really don't have that much to say on the songs themselves. I'll let the music speak for itself. But one technique or one product I loved and used very heavily on this album is by a company called Safari Pedals. And I used their flamingo reverb, but because it was around Christmas time when I was mixing it, I used the Christmas version of the flamingo reverb, which was a lot of fun. Really cool guitar pedal looking effect, but it works great on all kinds of tracks. And a lot of the majority of the reverb that you hear, pretty much everything except the bass guitar is going to be that flamingo reverb. Really, really nice. I love it. Just had to make a couple of tweaks to not be too springy sounding. And, because the basic patch on it that I used was like a spring reverb, but I just adjusted a little bit to take some of that out and make it a little more roomy. But I really like the setting I found, and I think it really worked well for the album. And then I just, varied degrees. I put that on a surround bus, and then just use that setting on the individual tracks to how much I wanted to send to it. But yeah, it's really nice. I dig it. I really dig their pedals. If you're looking for some fairly inexpensive effects that are high quality and are fun to work with, because the GUI on them is incredible. You definitely want to check them out. And for those of you who don't know what a GUI is, it's the visual interface. It's not something weird. So that was Foggy Night. Let's check out the next one. This is Long Shadows of the Fall. And there was a little bit of an inspiration behind this one. I talked about this on, I think I talked about this on the podcast already, but when we went to, or when I went to Michigan to meet up with Nate and John and Rich from the Deep Purple podcast, got to tell Roger Glover my story about the first time I listened to his album Snapshot Plus, which was driving back from Arizona to Vegas right before Halloween. And it's a really folky album. So it was just the perfect time to listen to it as the sun was going down that time of year. The shadows are just really long. There's a little bit of a golden quality to the sky as the sun sets. And it was just the absolute perfect time. It was getting chilly out, but I kept the window down anyway and just really let that coolness, that crispness in the air wash over me. It was just an absolutely perfect time. And that's what inspired this song. This is, again, Long Shadows of the Fall. It's interesting because when I think back about that drive, it wasn't, really dark at all, but I was thinking, more as it gets later into the evening and those shadows turn into just complete darkness and that whole morphing process that happens every single day. And it just looks different at different times of the year. So thinking about it, getting more into the transition of that moment into the rest of the night and watching that all wash into darkness. But I really like the feel of that piece. I love that lead synth. I actually had to split that into a second track because I just couldn't get it loud enough on the main track to really show off. It just was very much in the background because the rest of the track is a little bit hotter. So I ended up splitting that off into a second track after I had mixed it and then had to blend that in a little bit. So I'm very happy with the final result. It has that overall feeling that I really like. But definitely something you can just kind of get lost in. That percussion just, makes the track move, which I thought was good. Our next song is a place that I don't spend much time in anymore, but I certainly love their product. This is called Coffee Shop. Yeah, one of the things that just immediately comes to mind when I hear the term chill music is just the videos that I had seen of like a coffee shop with candles on the wall for some reason, and somebody, it's just like there's nobody there, and it's just a view of somebody sitting at a table, say, maybe looking out the window, and there's snow falling or whatever. But it's like these live pictures, like somebody just set a camera going, didn't let anybody walk into the shot, and just, let these candles burn while the song plays. Really neat. I actually really enjoyed them, but didn't typically like the music for some reason. It was just like, a style that, maybe not the style, but maybe the instruments that they chose or the way that they chose to do the song weren't typically things I connected with. So, but I love the visual of it that they would put in these YouTube videos. And so I thought coffee shop would be a good setting for a song, and what would I write? And that was that. But I like the percussion on this one. I like the feel of it. It's kind of intriguing, I think, a little bit. It's got a little bit of an element of mystery to it, which I thought was pretty cool. But it flows, and that's the thing, is I wanted all of these songs to have a flow to them. That was the most important part of doing this. So anyway, Coffee Shop. Our next song is a place I've never stayed, but I've always wanted to. This is called Snowy Cabin. I like that there's a little bit of optimism, I think, in the main melody, and it's just got a good feeling to me. And again, percussion moves the song along very nicely without being too layered or too busy. I think that's one thing is I really had to restrain myself in the amount of percussion I used on the album because as a drummer, I tend to want to do a lot of percussion, but I think too much of it just gets too distracting. It's too much to try and figure out what's going on. You just want a few pieces, things that are going to work together and make a nice rhythm track, or overall. And I started writing a couple of tracks on this one, I remember, and I was like, no, it's too much, and ended up taking those out. But yeah, this is just a good, warm, happy little song, and really enjoyed writing this one. As we get to the halfway point of the album, something we could all use, a moment of peace. Yeah, this is another one I feel just has that element of optimism to it, like just taking a breath, getting away from all the stress, just know that everything is going to be okay. And that's really what I wanted with this one. And I remember I had written down this title going, yeah, I think this would be a good title. And then when I picked it out, I said, well, okay, what do I want to write about? How do I want this to go? And that was the thing I wanted, was that element of just, life is tough. Let's just take a breath and know it's all going to work out. And hopefully that's what you guys get out of the song. And if you get something else out of it, that's perfectly fine too. As an artist, I tend to look at things as I write what I feel, but interpretation is a very personal thing, especially when it comes to music. So as long as you feel something and it makes you happy, then the song has done what it should do. That's the goal. At least with the Mental Sauna album, when I write soundtrack stuff, it depends on the soundtrack. Now, for you guys who might be newer to this series of music, yes, it is very repetitive. It's designed to be, because it's not designed to be something that you really focus on. It's designed to be something more that's present in the room with you, to kind of take your mind off the stress, to just make you feel good, but not to necessarily sit there and go, oh, that was a cool riff, or I really like that drum beat or whatever, because it's this particular series is not about that. I've written a lot of music that does have that in it, though. Yeah. So Mental Sauna is just about, a bubble bath for your brain and your spirit and your heart and all of that stuff. Don't take those things out and put them in a bubble bath, though. That's not a good idea. So we are now halfway through the album. Our next song is called Out the Window. this was one that I just listened back to and thought, I really am happy with this one. I think the bass line and the gentle sound of the percussion really just keep things going along like a nice gentle stream. And then you've got that synth over the top of that little bit of build up, and then the lead synth on it, which is just a very simple, couple of notes, but it has a meaning to it. It has a good feel to it. And I really like that. I guess the kids would call that a vibe, or hopefully would call that a vibe. But yeah, really, really like this one. The next one is called Waiting by the Water. This is one where I really had to restrain myself from not writing more percussion. There was so much more I wanted to do with it, but it was starting to take it out of that element of what the album is supposed to be all about. And I don't think it would have worked for the purpose of this particular album. So instead of reworking it and saving it for something else, I really wanted to include it because I love the sounds on it. It's just got this warm feeling in the pads and a nice rhythm to it without being overbearing. So I thought, no, I really need to keep it in check and keep it on track. And hopefully I've done that. I'm pretty happy with this one. As I was listening back to it yesterday, approving the final master, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites on this album. So maybe you'll like it too. That's the hope anyway. So as we're getting down to our last few tracks here, this one is called Watching the World Go By. At first, I thought this might be the one track that doesn't really fit the album, but at the end of the day, it really did just put me in that state of getting, letting the music take me away and not getting engrossed in what it was doing. At first, I thought maybe it wasn't warm enough, so I added a little more warmth to it. And I think this was one that didn't have a bass line originally, so I added one to it. I could be wrong on that. When you write a bunch of songs around the same time, little bits start to blend together. It's different when you have, if you're writing like rock that has lyrics and riffs and things like that, because those tend to be a little bit more memorable. But with these songs, it's like I write them and I'm like, okay, and I get ready to get on to the next song, and then I revisit them when I go to double check the album before I start mixing and all that. So it's really like I just they tend to come and go very quickly, and I don't get that close to them until I'm mixing them, and then I actually really learn the songs. And sometimes I'm like, this is missing something, and I'll go back and add it, or like the one that I had to split the synth track because it just wasn't coming out right. Didn't change anything in the music. It just didn't work volume wise. So a lot of times I don't, but when I was listening back, I thought, it really does. So it really does put me in the same state that I want to be in, that I had set out to do with this album. So I did keep it on the album included. I really liked the song. I just wasn't sure if maybe it didn't have the right feel to it, but Tommy also liked it. So I got that going for me. Got 3 more songs to go on this one, as there are 12 total. This next one is called A Day at the Marsh. I love that deep building, low sounding synth that just kind of morphs a little bit. That very similar to the sound that the keyboardist of Nazareth used on the song "Please Don't Judas Me." Just has that cold feeling to it. Just that really interesting synthy build it has. It seems just very natural and very slow and patient. Thought that worked really well for the song. The percussion really flows on this one. Again, I was kind of borderline. Is this too much? Does it have too much of a beat to it? And I don't think so. I think it is something that, you catch it at first and then you just kind of just feel it more than anything else. And every once in a while, like, wait a minute, what's the percussion doing again? And just kind of go back to it. But I definitely feel like it's one that you can just let your mind enjoy without thinking about. And that's why it has its place on this album. But yeah, I love this. And another one with that hint of optimism in it that I felt was really important on these songs. Not something I've specifically focused on with Mental Sauna, optimism, but I definitely wanted that with this. And I think it works fine. Again, didn't think I pushed the limit on percussion too far. Had I gone any further, I think, yeah, I probably would have. But it's a fun one, that one. I like that. And it makes me think about the time my grandparents on my dad's side, the Haskins, took us to a place in Michigan called Point Pelee Park. And it was a big marsh, and they had these really long boardwalks that you could go walk out towards, into the marsh, and, just kind of get a feel of what it's like to be there. Of course, there's a lot of bugs and stuff because it's Michigan and it's out in the marsh. So there are a lot of mosquitoes, but it was a really cool place. It was also a big fear of bees because they're like, watch out for bees, watch out for bees. I'm like, then why do we have this here? if there are so many bees. That seems silly. But it was a really cool place, and that memory has always stuck with me. Really enjoyed it. I wish I had been able to go back and really explore it, because it was a very big place. As I recall, there were long paths that you could take through the marsh, and we only went out, so far and all that. But it was a really cool place. Don't know if it's still there or not, but I enjoyed it when I was there. If it is, go check it out. Somewhere in Michigan, Point Peely Park. Anyway, back to the album. This next one was actually, believe it or not, inspired by Stephen King. This is called The Path to the Clearing. This song has some very slow, long, evolving synths that I thought were pretty cool. I actually got them just while I was working on this project, and I wanted to see if they would work for the sound I was going for, and they did very well. I had listened to some demos online using the sounds, and I thought, yeah, I really like these. There's a lot of things that you can't use them for because it evolved too slowly, especially in volume. But they're very cool for certain applications. I think they worked well on this song. So the Stephen King, obviously this is not a horror song, but the Stephen King reference is in the Dark Tower series. He refers to heaven as the path at the end of the clearing at the end of the path. And so this is the path to that clearing. And just, the patient walk, the tingy, tangy little sounds that you'd hear along the way, potentially, just in this particular vision I had for it. But I really liked the reference of that, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to represent that musically. So that was my song for that. And as we wind down to the last song, we're back to the coffee theme, back to that coffee house video that I saw that I really liked. And this one is called Espresso. So this one's interesting with that offbeat kick drum. I thought that would be kind of fun for the beat because everything else is just so on tempo. You've got that rim shot sound is on tempo and everything else. And I thought it'd be cool to have the bass drum be on tempo, but not where you would expect it. And your brain, will get used to it and it'll just accept it after a few passes of it. So, I thought that was pretty interesting. I love the pads on this. Really just a journey. The pads just kind of carry you away and you're kind of grounded in that percussion. You might be saying, Scott, why would you put a song called Espresso on a relaxation album? Well, let me tell you, I could drink a pot of coffee and go right to bed and it wouldn't even affect me. And I feel like espresso is probably the only thing that might not do that. I've only had it a couple times. Didn't really like the taste of it the first time. The second time, I'm like, yeah, I could get used to this. It tastes more like coffee grounds to me than coffee. But yeah, I liked it. And now you can do, all these different blended drinks and everything with espresso in them, which could be potentially interesting to try. Unfortunately, many of them are too sugary for me. But yeah, I thought that was a, kind of an interesting idea for a song. And I thought the percussion gave you, that feeling of, too much coffee, but yet not musically, it wasn't like, a thrash song or anything like that. I think it stayed within the realm of chill music. So it was an interesting experiment anyway, and I really liked it. And I thought it worked, so I put it on the album. And I thought that was a great closer for the album as well. So anyway, album is available today on my BandCamp page. It will be available on iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon, all those places that you hear. If you want to stream the album, that's fine. If you want to support me as an artist, the best place that you could purchase it would be on my BandCamp page, and that's where it is right now. That goes up on release day. The rest of them, like I said earlier, will all have their own time frames. They show up when they show up. I don't have any control over that. But hopefully you'll want to support me and you'll get it on my BandCamp page. It comes with that beautiful artwork that Kelly did. And I'm waiting on, as I'm recording this, I'm just waiting on Rebecca to finish the lettering so I can do the album reveal or the album cover reveal, I should say. And yeah, really happy with this one. Thanks to my team who does such an amazing job supporting me on the graphic side. Everything else, I handle all the mixing and mastering, but huge shout out to Tommy. One, for inspiring me to do this album, and two, for taking the time to check the songs and tell me whether they were in the right vein or not. I don't think I would have felt comfortable releasing these as a chill album without Tommy's endorsement of the songs. So thank you very much, Tommy. Hope you're safe out there in whatever body of water you're in at the moment. Or if you're on land, well, I still hope you're safe. So thank you guys for listening. Check out my new podcast, Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, starting February 3rd. You will find that in all the same places that you find this podcast. So wherever you're listening, it will be there. If it isn't already, the RSS feed should be available. So it should be showing up with one episode in the feed, just my feed episode that kind of just gives an overview of what my anticipation is for the show. Of course, everything is always evolving. You never know how things will go. But anyway, if you're a fan of Deep Purple, like I said, or curious about their music, go check out that show. Haskin Cast Podcast will be back next week with another episode that I'm very excited about. It's actually going to be a 2-part episode. This one will air instead of my normal Wednesday and Thursday. This will air actually on Tuesday and Wednesday because it correlates with a new podcast, or a returning podcast, I should say, that my guest for the week is doing. And I'm excited to be a part of that project as well. So anyway, all the details next week. Check that out Tuesday and Wednesday at your normal time. Thanks, guys, so much for checking out this album. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you find great relaxation and enjoyment in it as you listen to it. The complete pieces. Have it on as a background. My one caution is I just don't recommend driving with this music on in the car because it is designed to relax your mind, and that's the last thing you need when you're on the road. Although some people function perfectly well and have said that they listen to it often in the car and have been just fine. So I'll leave that to your discretion, but just please be aware of that. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you all so much for checking out my new album. See you soon. Cheers.